Hi everyone, welcome back. I am delighted now to welcome Isabel from EY, who will share a presentation with you that is also interactive, so be prepared to get involved. And we may, I don't know, Isabel, whether they'll make an appearance, but we may see a special guest. We shall see.
Perfect. I will share my slides now and we can make a start. Yes, Chris is referring to my little dog who is padding around, so may appear in the background. I'm not sure if EY has budget for a prize if you're able to screenshot him, but yeah, sorry if he causes any interruptions. So as Chris said, I'm Isabel. I'm here from Ernst & Young. We're a professional services firm. I work in the international tax team. I'm about 4 years into a 4.5-year apprenticeship. My pronouns are she, her, and probably important context for today, I'm a bisexual woman. So yeah, that's a photo of me and my job title. So I was reading my shampoo bottle today in the shower, as you do, and it told me that my shampoo's mission was to empower me to speak and act with presence. Given that we spend a lot more time at work than we do in the shower, I think it's important that our employers are at least as committed to empowering us as our shampoo is. So along that theme today, I have 3 things I'd like to talk about and also use those interactive
Isabel,
elements.
sorry, quickly. Sorry to interrupt. We can't see your slides.
Oh no, sorry about that.
That's okay. Although I've never missed
Let me
empowering
stop
shampoo.
sharing and start sharing. Too focused on my shampoo anecdote, clearly.
I was going to say, this is a fascinating conversation. Right, okay, Brill. If you, yeah, and then if you make that full screen. Brilliant.
Perfect, is that all right?
I'm so sorry.
Thank you for letting me know.
I didn't want us to miss this amazing story. Yeah, back to you.
The joys of working from home. Okay, so there are my slides. So today's presentation, there are 3 elements, and I'd like to get your opinion on all of these using Menti. So if you have your phones or laptops at the ready to take down that code, that would be great. The first is going to be talking about what authentic looks like to you. Is it synonymous with being out, and what does it look like to be out at work or authentic at work? The second thing I'd like to talk to you about is the impact of being your authentic self. So I think Emily from the University of Law touched on this really well, which is it can have a massive impact on your mental health, being able to be your authentic self around your clients and colleagues. And the final thing I'd like to talk about is D&I at EY. So what does EY encourage people? How do we encourage people to bring their whole selves to work? And how are we working on that? So what does being authentic at work mean to you? This was something that was quite difficult for me to work out because actually I went back in the closet when I started work for the first time. And so I had to figure out how to come out at work over the last year or so. And so this is what being out at work looks like for me. Short of sending a group email, I thought maybe I could add an email signature during Pride Month that had our little rainbow logo. This I support inclusion banner also stays in it all year round. I posted on LinkedIn for Pride Month and for Bi-Visibility Day, and the firm produced graphics and content for that I could share. I also have our Unity Network banner in my LinkedIn, and I was also lucky enough to be nominated for some LGBT awards at work I could talk about online. Also, I'm not in my office today, but when I am in my office, I have this little sign that my friend made for me that says "Be Gay, Do Tax" that sits on the back of my calls. So any colleagues that I work with or have calls with can see that in the background. So now if you could pop out your phones or your laptops and take down this code. If you go to menti.com and put in that code, or alternatively, you can just hold up your phone to that QR code and open the website. I'd really like to hear what being authentic means to you. So whether that's if you're at university or school or being authentic in the workplace, how do you think you demonstrate that? What does that look like? And I'll also open up the Menti screen so we can start looking at your answers. So one of the things I was interested in hearing about in this section, if you're struggling for something to put, is whether there are things other than coming out that are authentic. So, for example, when I wasn't out, yeah, exactly, not hiding who I really am. There were some things that I didn't want to share about myself because I was worried about how I'd be perceived. Yeah, not hiding who you really are, inclusion. Yeah, your full personality. We have a phrase we use at EY that I think is used in different organizations as well, called bringing your whole self to work, not having to leave any of those at home, not feeling like you have to hold anything back. Yeah, and being true to yourself. Yeah, exactly. These are really great answers. Thank you. Okay, I'll just give it a few more seconds and then switch back to our PowerPoint slides. But thank you for sharing these. Yeah, I completely agree. So one of the reasons I wanted to ask these questions about whether we think it's synonymous with being out or whether authentic can mean something else is because we have these statistics. 19% of LGBT people had not disclosed their identity to any person at work. 57% haven't disclosed to any customers or clients. And obviously this is an issue that will be very different for lots of us, depending on our identity, whether we're happy to share. So, for example, 1 in 8 trans employees have been attacked at work by either a colleague or a customer. And so, if you don't feel in a position where you're safe to come out, then obviously being authentic might mean something different to you, and creating an inclusive environment for you might look slightly different. It's also kind of different for people that we might work with in an international firm like EY. So we work in 150 different countries. And so I work with people from some countries where they don't feel it's safe to come out. So the question is, how do we create an inclusive environment for them that doesn't necessarily rely on them being out? So if we can create that inclusive environment, what do you think the benefits of being authentic are? So to share my story a little bit, because I've come out at work in the last year, for me it was so liberating because you stop hiding these parts of yourself because you're worried about how people will perceive you. Being able to tell stories at work without being worried about the pronouns that I was saying, and actually things that I didn't think were related, like finally being able to dress the way I wanted and the way I dressed around my friends. So yeah, that's the same Menti code. So if you already have that open on your phone, I've got this question up on the Menti. What do you think the benefits of being authentic are? Being able to be myself. Yeah, share ideas. So one thing that we're really big on at EY is teaming. If you work on any of our clients, you'll work in a team. The dog making being able to share your ideas in a team from anywhere from like 3 up to 50 people. So if you have some people that don't feel like they're able to contribute fully, then obviously that has a massive impact on your firm. So not only is it good for us individually to be able to bring our whole selves to work, it's vital for the success of organizations like UI. Yeah, not worrying about outing yourself when talking about your personal life. So to share a personal anecdote again, when I first started at EY, my partner was female, and someone asked me in my first few days if I had a boyfriend. And I didn't want to say no, because I didn't want to give the impression I was single because I cared about my partner very much, but I didn't feel confident enough to correct them. And so then you start worrying about the pronouns that you're saying when you're talking about your personal life. So yeah, bringing your whole self to work reduces so much of that anxiety. Yeah, being able to be your best self at your job. These are brilliant answers. Thank you. It's good to get your opinions on all of these. Yeah, the benefits of authenticity with clients and colleagues. You've covered off so many of them there. Obviously, you're going to enjoy your job more if you're able to feel like you're around friends when you're with your colleagues, share your stories, share your jokes, and not have to worry about the way that you're coming across. So what can employers do to enable these? Well, there are formal structures and policies, right? So for example, at EY, we have our Unity network, and we have clear structures that if people are unsure about things like pronoun use, if people are unsure about like what it looks like to be LGBT in the workplace, we have resources and we have organizations where people are sharing that information to help progress us as an organization. Culture. Again, I feel like we have a very committed culture, and I'll come on to this in the next few slides, into making people feel like they belong and making people feel included. And finally, opportunities to disclose without an obligation to out yourself. So this was one that actually was suggested to me by another LGBT colleague as an important thing that employers can be doing, because we have a lot of opportunities at EY to do things like team socials, and we have check-in calls with each other nearly every day where we just chat and talk about our lives that have been put in during COVID to help us feel more connected to our teams while we're working from home. And actually, these have provided opportunities for us to let people get to know us a bit better and share details about ourselves without having an obligation to share things that you're not ready to or don't feel safe to. So finally, before we get to the questions, I want to share a bit more information about diversity and inclusion at EY. So at EY, we're working to build a culture where you're embraced for who you are. Our organisation is all about helping to solve our clients' problems and helping them through different circumstances. So we're only able to solve those challenges when we come together as an inclusive team, where I think someone actually said on one of these comments, it was a perfect answer, being able to share your ideas freely and feel like your voice is being listened to. I think we had the first established LGBT network. Sean, who's my colleague in the booth, might be able to confirm that, but I think I heard that when I first joined the firm. We were the first of the big four to establish an LGBT network. They run events nearly every week where we have either webinars or networking events that you can go to that have carried on through COVID and help you to feel like you're part of a community within that company. We also have LGBT alliances with groups across the UK. So we're learning from them and also helping to develop policies that are going to help our diversity and inclusion programme. So a quote from Ruth Hunt, who is Chief Executive at Stonewall, is that the innovative ways that EY has reached out to staff and fostered a community within their Unity LGBT network is a valuable example to others. So we're constantly working on improving that sense of belonging and expanding that network. I won't go on to these specifically because it could be quite a long read, but we've made clear strategic decisions to help create this culture of belonging. And this includes setting very specific targets for making the partner group more diverse. So the people that are making the decisions at the very top of our organisation are going to be more representative of the people who work throughout the firm. They also want to become role models and a leading disruptive voice on D&I, which is especially influential because we work with the majority of the FTSE 500. So if we're able to set a strong example of what a good firm for LGBT people to work at looks like, then we can help our clients and colleagues, our clients make these decisions within their own firms and guide them on those policies. One of the most influential policies that I've seen during my time at EY, because I joined in 2018, is this Strong When We Belong initiative. If you join us on an apprenticeship or a grad scheme, you'll see a lot about this, and it involves sharing guidance, sharing stories. If you sign up for the newsletters, you'll get one of these every week, talking about people's personal experiences as they relate to work, but also in their personal lives, kind of help you feel this sense of community within the firm, and that includes articles, podcasts, and content that we can share with our clients and on LinkedIn. So it's both our internal culture and also the way that we share that content with our clients. If you want to speak directly with our graduates and apprentices, preferably those that don't have little dogs running around in the background, then we do actually have a function where you can go to our website and ask questions. So those can be specific questions about your career or about EY culture in general. And we also share a lot of information on our social media, including like quizzes and competitions as well that you can get involved with. So finally, I'm going to stop sharing my slides now, and I'm going to answer any questions that you had, either about the presentation or if you're interested in a role at EY as well.
Thank you, Isabel. We've got some questions coming in, but I imagine we won't be short of questions. So please, we give people a chance to think of them, and we will hear from Isabel on the panel as well later this afternoon. I had a couple of questions. I think everything that EY does clearly is sort of, there's a lot that happens within this space. And you mentioned, you know, when you first started, you were kind of not waiting for permission. That's probably too strong, but certainly when you had a partner and someone said, "Oh, do you have a boyfriend?" Clearly they misgendered your partner. But what was it that made that change for you? Because sometimes it's so easy to sort of conform to what we see and hear when we go into an organization. But how quickly did that change for you? And, you know, did you join the network group, and were you, you know, featuring banners like "Be Gay, Do Tax"? Like how quick was that for you there?
Well, there were a couple of massive things for me. The first was having amazing role models. So there was a senior manager who I met after a few months who was an openly gay man, and he was amazing at his job. He'd won several industry awards. So seeing him at the absolute top of our industry, being amazing at what he did, and proudly sharing his identity was a huge thing for me to see. But also in terms of personally feeling like I could share things about myself, the COVID lockdown was actually really influential, because suddenly, instead of kind of putting on my grey work clothes and marching into work every day and leaving a lot of myself at home, people could see me in my house. And I started telling more jokes and dressing the way I would when I was at home, and feeling a lot more comfortable to share myself with my colleagues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you pick up on like authenticity, and actually that is a big part of it, isn't it? You can bring out so much of your personality in a suit, maybe. Might be slightly a lot, but you might wear a bright tie or a bright roll neck, as I am. But I think you're right. Like having a literal letterbox into someone's home and being able to sort of share that space with your work colleagues is quite a vulnerable position to be in. But I think actually, if done right, it does open up those conversations, you know, and if you do have partners and they're walking by and you're like, "I'm on a video call, get off," then actually, you know, you can't hide that. So no, I thank you for picking up on those points. There was something that you mentioned, and it does come up a lot when individuals enter organizations where there's a lot of client engagement and client involvement. Have you, or has anyone in Y sort of discussed coming out to clients? Because I know sometimes, particularly when clients are working in parts of the world where we're unable to be ourselves, I was just fascinated to hear around sort of how that conversation comes up. And if it hasn't come up for you, has it come up internally?
Well, I think we have a few different types of clients in my particular service line. Some of them will be clients that we get through other overseas firms. So our US colleagues might get in touch and say, "We have this one-off UK tax query." And in that sense, the client will probably never know our names or really anything about us. But my favorite client relationships are those where we work with them on lots of different issues very closely over multiple years. And we might see them for socials, go out for dinner together. And I think those are the opportunities for us to get to know them a bit better, and vice versa. And so in those situations, I am out with all of my colleagues like that. And that's been encouraged by the managers and partners that I've worked with on those accounts. Obviously, it's completely up to you how much you want to share with your clients and what you want that relationship to look like. And there are loads of different ways that can look and still be a great client relationship. But personally, I've always been encouraged to share my full self with my clients.
Bro, thank you. Because I wanted to ask that question because I know it can be quite daunting and on a lot of people's minds in terms of like, okay, I can be out in the organization I work in, but what happens when we're dealing with third-party suppliers? But it certainly sounds like EY is extremely supportive of that. In the chat function, we can see your colleague Sean sort of mention a few things. So yes, EY was one of the first. EY was also singled out as one of the most consistently LGBT-friendly firms to work in across all sectors nationwide. So yeah, so if I noticed Sean was on the booth earlier on, so if no one's had an opportunity to speak to him yet, then definitely go over and speak to Sean on the booth. So a few more questions. One that I'd like to save to the end, actually, and I probably will ask a similar question on the panel later. But one that's just come in: do you feel you've got a good network around you, both within the LGBTQ plus network and within your team and colleagues?
Do you know, as Sean mentioned, I think EY have done a really great job of putting those networks in place, and doing everything that they can to make LGBT people feel included in the firm. But honestly, I would love to see more representation. Most LGBT colleagues I have are other junior people, and so it's going to be so exciting over the course of my career to see more people come into the firm who are LGBT, and also see my existing peers rise up through the ranks and be managers and senior managers and partners who are able to provide that sense of community and that network.
Bro, thank you. Thinking back then to when you were applying and when you were looking for roles, someone would like to know, would you have done anything differently in your application, or certainly in your earlier career?
That is such a good question. The first time I applied for EY, it was for a work experience role, and I didn't get it. And the reason I didn't get it is because I didn't do enough research. I thought I knew what those kind of programs looked like. And so when they picked up the phone and asked me what I was excited about for that program, I didn't have a very good answer for them. So that was the main thing I regretted, and I helped them improve for the next time. But one thing that I didn't do in my second application process for the apprenticeship that I would do if I had it again now, is speak to more EY people, be able to go into that interview and say, well, I spoke to your colleague and she told me this, and that made me really excited to work in your team because that's really important to me. I think that's always a really powerful thing, and it helps them to see how you're going to fit into their team as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like if we sort of said it earlier on, I did a short session on sort of making the most out of today, and it's really getting to understand what excites you about that organization and why you want to work there, rather than just a quick skim of the website, you know, and actually looking at some of what the LGBT networks do within organizations. It can be quite fascinating, and it can actually like really influence societal change. So what would you say are some of the most exciting projects that you've worked on so far? And is there anything sort of up and coming, or something that you'd really love to be doing that you can do within EY?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to work out what I can say that's not confidential now.
Come on.
No, the most exciting projects for me are always going to be these massive transactions. I have news alerts set for all of my clients, and when I see something that I'm working on come up on BBC News, it's an amazing feeling. At the moment, I'm working on a client who is selling off maybe a third of their business, and it's a massive project for them, and we're right in the middle of it. So that's the most exciting thing I'm doing right now. In terms of projects coming up in the future, for their recently qualified people, EY have an opportunity in international tax for you to go and work in their New York office for a set period, whether that's 4 or 6 months, and their office is 5 Times Square. So you go and answer UK tax queries for US clients. So if I'm able to go on that secondment, that would be the most exciting project coming up, I think.
Wow, that would be amazing. And then we can, next time we have you on the panel, we can say international. Is sharing their experiences of working across the world. That's incredible. The other questions that we've got, and you kind of touched upon it, but I'm just wondering if I ask this question, whether you'd want to elaborate on certain points. But someone said, I was wondering how EY specifically promotes self-authenticity and inclusion at work. Of course, you've got the inclusion strategy and the accolades and the awards, but on a day-to-day, I guess, function, what does that look like in terms of promoting that authenticity from day one?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it probably has lots of different answers. But the most impactful way I've seen um, that being a part of our culture is top-down focus from our partners. We have multiple partners in every single team, and so they have a lot of influence on shaping our culture. And my experience of every partner in my team has actually been a real willingness not only to deliberately include people and respect their identities, but also educate themselves. Over my 3-4 years at EY now, I've seen one of the partners in my team actually learn about the gender identity spectrum and actually putting his pronouns in his email signature and actively asking people for their pronouns, and seeing really senior people go out of their way to do things like that, I think has a massive impact on our culture.
Mm. Yeah, it really does set the tone, I think, for an organization when you see it from top down, but ultimately also when an organization meets in the middle, and if they can hear that actually people want to see it. And the pronouns piece is, it's important because years ago, I don't think you would have seen it, and when I started working for an LGBT charity back in 2014, organizations and society wasn't there. So it's wonderful to see in 2021 how much more advanced we are, not only as a society, but also within our organizations. I think organizations often shift society quite quickly. But there's always still much more to do. But it certainly sounds as if you've got the senior sponsorship there, and you've got the opportunities to sort of share ideas and share, new policies and practices. Would you agree?
Yeah, there is a real, not even willingness, but the partners being very keen and excited about learning these things, and doing everything that they can to help people feel included. So yeah, a very well, I would say open door policy, but we don't have offices, so an open plan, open door policy.
Yeah, an open laptop at the moment for some people.
Yeah, an open laptop policy.
Okay, bro. Well, if there's any, what we'll do, we'll just ask one last time if anyone would want to ask any additional questions. And Isabel is on the panel later. I think we'll really go into, I guess, the history of prior to EY, I think, then, Isabel, and what you're doing now. But yeah, let's just give it sort of 10, 20 seconds for any final questions to come in. Was there anything that you wanted to pick up that before we jump off?
Not especially. I mean, I have some information prepared about our apprenticeship and graduate schemes, but yeah, also that's all available on our student recruitment site.
Bro. Okay. Right then. Well, we will see you back later on. So please do think of questions for Isabel. We will have a fascinating conversation, no doubt. And yeah, thank you so much for your time today. And I will see you later.
Thanks very much. See you later.
You. So if everyone can join us back now at 10 to 4, where we will have Accenture up next to discuss what they're doing around the LGBT space internally, and the projects that they're working on. And then we will see Isabel later on.